Welcome back. If you're looking for a clear take on complex issues fast, you're in the right place.
That's what we aim for.
Today, we're diving into something pretty significant happening in South Africa, this proposed hike to the value-added tax, the VAT.
Yeah, it's a big one. And we've looked at the sources, trying to get a handle on, why it's proposed, who's saying what, and really what it means for everyday people.
Right. The mission is to cut through the noise, understand the core arguments for and against who gets affected, and maybe what else could be done. We've seen comments from Songezo Zibi, Finance Minister Godongwana.
And the DA's perspective, too. Plus analysis on the impact on, everyone.
Okay, let's get straight into it then. The National Treasury. They've put forward this VAT rate hike aiming for May 1st. That seems soon.
It is quite a quick timeline. The official line, the stated reasons, are mainly about tackling budget deficits. Basically, the government spending more than it's taking in.
A familiar story in many places.
Indeed. And they also say it's crucial for funding essential public services. Think health, education, and just generally trying to stabilize the economy, getting the national books in better shape.
Okay, so that's the why from the Treasury's perspective, but it sounds like not everyone's convinced this is the right move, or maybe the right time. Songezo Zibi, for instance, seems strongly opposed. What's his main issue?
Zibi's core argument really is that South Africa just isn't prepared for this right now. He's pointing to potential logistical nightmares.
Like what?
Well, think about updating pricing systems across thousands, maybe millions of items in shops everywhere, and the admin burden, especially for smaller businesses. He foresees potential chaos, confusion.
Right, practical implementation challenges.
Exactly. And beyond the logistics, he's really concerned about the impact on ordinary people, the consumers. He stresses the disproportionate harm it could do to the poor.
Yeah, that makes sense. It always seems to come down to who feels the pinch the most, doesn't it?
Absolutely. VAT is a consumption tax, so technically everyone pays it when they buy things. But if you're on a tight budget already, an increase in basics, bread, transport, it takes a much bigger chunk out of your disposable income compared to someone wealthier.
Okay, clear point. Now, flipping the coin, we have the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana. He seems to see this as unavoidable. What's his reasoning?
Godongwana presents a pretty stark picture. He argues that not implementing the VAT hike could lead to severe problems, potentially even the collapse of some critical government functions.
Collapse. That sounds dramatic.
It is strong language. He specifically mentions things like social grants, which millions rely on healthcare, and education funding being at serious risk if this extra revenue isn't found.
So it's framing it less as a choice and more as a necessary evil to prevent a worse outcome, like keeping essential services running.
That's exactly the framing. A difficult step, perhaps, but one needed to avoid, really damaging fiscal consequences down the road, preventing a bigger crisis in public services.
Understood. It's a tough argument to counter if those services are genuinely at risk.
It definitely raises the stakes in the debate.
And it's not just Zibi pushing back. The Democratic Alliance, the DA, they've weighed in too. What's their take?
They've been very critical. They've actually labeled the plan short-sighted and illegal. Strong words.
Illegal. Why illegal?
They're pointing towards, what they see as a lack of proper transparency in how this decision was reached, and also a failure to consult adequately before proposing something with such a massive impact.
So procedural issues, essentially. Lack of due process.
That seems to be a key part of their objection, yes. And based on that, they're calling for an investigation.
Okay. So we have these high-level arguments, necessity versus unpreparedness, legality concerns. Let's bring it back down to the ground level. For someone listening, how does this VAT increase actually change the price of things they buy every week?
Right. This is where it becomes very real for people. A VAT hike directly increases the cost of most goods and services. Think about your regular shopping list.
Like bread, milk.
Exactly. Bread, milk, cooking oil, but also things like school uniforms for the kids, maybe baby formula, cleaning supplies. All those everyday essentials are likely to cost more.
And as we discussed with Zibi's point, this extra cost isn't felt equally.
Not at all. The burden, the real weight of these price increases falls heaviest on low-income households.
People in townships, maybe?
Yes, township residents, people who are unemployed, informal traders, street vendors, anyone operating on very thin margins. Even a small percentage increase on essentials can be, devastating for their budgets.
Whereas for wealthier individuals,
they'll pay more in rand terms, of course, because they likely consume more overall. But as a percentage of their income or total spending, the impact is much, much smaller. it's less likely to force difficult choices about what they can afford.
So there's a real risk of deepening existing inequalities here. It sounds like a significant concern.
It's a major part of the opposition argument, definitely.
Okay, so if raising VAT is potentially so harmful to vulnerable groups, and there are these logistical questions, are there other options? Have alternatives been suggested to tackle the budget deficit?
Yes, absolutely. Various economists and civil society groups have been saying, hang on, let's look at other things first.
Yeah.
One big suggestion is improving tax collection efficiency.
Meaning collecting the tax that's already owed but maybe slipping through the cracks.
Precisely. The idea is that if SARS, the South African Revenue Service, could be more effective in collecting existing taxes, corporate tax, income tax, even the current VAT, maybe that closes some of the budget gap without needing to raise rates.
That seems logical. You fix the leaks before you turn up the tap.
Kind of, yeah. And related to that, there's talk about technology. SARS itself has apparently mentioned that upgrading their systems could help reduce fraud and evasion, boosting revenue collection that way.
Interesting. What else is on the table?
The other major alternative often brought up is cutting wasteful government spending.
Ah, the perennial issue.
The argument here is pretty straightforward. Before you ask citizens, especially the poorest, to pay more, the government needs to show it's spending responsibly, look hard at budgets, cut non-essential expenditures, tackle corruption.
Find savings within the existing system first.
Exactly. The question many are asking is, have these avenues, better collection, smarter spending, been fully exhausted before jumping to a VAT hike?
It does make you wonder, if SARS thinks tech can help collect more, and there's always talk of trimming government fat, why isn't that the primary focus right now? Why leap to VAT?
That's a key question in this whole debate. Perhaps the Treasury feels those measures won't yield enough revenue quickly enough? Or maybe the VAT hike is seen as a simpler, more direct tool, despite the consequences.
So wrapping this up, we really have this core tension, don't we? On one hand, the National Treasury is saying, look, this is necessary for economic stability, for funding services you rely on.
Right, the necessary measure argument.
And on the other hand, voices like Songezo Zibi saying the country isn't ready, the systems aren't ready, and crucially, this will hurt the most vulnerable people disproportionately.
Yeah, the lack of preparedness and social impact arguments, plus the DA's concerns about legality and transparency.
So for everyone listening, the big question to chew on is this. When you weigh the potential economic stabilization against the very real risk of making life harder for millions, is this VAT hike the right answer right now? Is it a necessary fix, or could it actually cause more harm than good in the immediate term?
It forces you to think critically about priorities, trade-offs, and who bears the cost of balancing the national budget. There are rarely easy answers to these kinds of economic challenges.
Definitely not. And it highlights the ongoing issues South Africa is grappling with and the different paths proposed to navigate them. Something to keep an eye on, for sure.
Absolutely. It's a complex situation with significant implications for everyone in the country. Staying informed on how this unfolds is really important.